Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Friday Independent Living Skills discussion. Today's topic is the Social Security benefits. That's a tongue twister for me today. But quick visual description for those who have not met me. My name is Catherine. I am a white female in my mid-30s. I have shoulder-length black hair that I'm wearing pulled back today, and I have a black top with white polka dots on. And I am coming to you from the LVCIL office from our Dan Wilson conference room on a kind of gray, rainy Friday morning here in downtown Allentown. I'd like to welcome Richard and thank him for being with us today. As I said, he's going to talk about SSI benefits. He is going to join us again in 3 weeks when we talk about SSDI benefits. So if you'd like more information about that or to get signed up for that presentation, you can drop your email in the chat box and I will send you the link to sign up. Logistics for today. So we are recording the session and we will post that recording to the Lehigh Valley SIL YouTube channel. We do invite you to turn on your cameras if you feel comfortable. Kind of makes it feel a little bit more like we're together. Captions are available through Zoom. You just click on the CC live transcript and show subtitles to turn them on. And as I mentioned earlier, chat is available. You can post questions, reaction, comments throughout the presentation. We will pause for those questions. If you have technical difficulties, you can post that in the chat as well. I will do my best to get to them and help you navigate whatever troubles you may be having with Zoom today. So Richard is the public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration. As a spokesman for the Social Security Administration in North and Southeastern Pennsylvania, Richard conducts presentations like today's designed to promote a better understanding of Social Security benefits and services. In addition, he serves as the agency's key contact for social service and government agencies, major employers, and the media. In his career with Social Security, Richard has also worked as a claims representative and served as the disability work incentives expert in the Philadelphia downtown SSA office. He has received numerous awards for his work in both the aging and disability communities. So Richard is the perfect person to speak to us today. So I will turn it over to Richard and we'll get your slides up.
Very good. Thank you, Catherine, and good morning, everybody. So it's also a great morning down here in the Philadelphia area. So I hope it gets a little nicer as we go through. So as Catherine said, today we're going to talk about Supplemental Security Income, the SSI program. And then next time I'm on, and sometime in March, we will do Social Security Disability, SSDI. So I'm going to cover a lot of stuff here today. Do not worry if you don't get every single thing today, because between our website, which has all the same information, and contacting us either by phone or in person, you'll be able to get your questions answered. And even if somebody along the way needs to contact me, they can do that as well. So, okay, Catherine, we're going to get started here with the first slide.
Okay, and can you confirm that you are seeing the slides?
Yeah, at least I've seen, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Sure, yeah. Hope everybody else is as well. Okay, folks, so these are the topics we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about, as we said, SSI, disability benefits in particular. We're going to talk about the eligibility factors, the application process, and after somebody gets on benefits, we're going to talk about what happens if they want to go to work, what the work incentive program is all about, and then the Ticket to Work program, which can help people if they're trying to get a job. So we're going to go through in this order. So it's a lot of stuff, like I said, but just for kind of go through a certain sequence here. Okay, go ahead, Kath. So SSI is a needs-based program. It provides a cash benefit on the first day of each month. And in Pennsylvania, people who get SSI automatically get Medicaid from the state. And SSI, in terms of the categories of recipients, you have folks who get benefits because they're aged, and that means they're 65 or older. No disability is involved for those folks. It's just a matter of reaching 65 or more. And then anybody younger than 65, adults and children, they would have to be disabled, which is, we're going to be talking about those folks today. As I mentioned, SSI is a needs-based program, so there's no work requirement, unlike Social Security, SSDI, but there is an income and resource or an income and asset limit. You have to meet certain limits there, and also a person's living arrangement is considered in the entitlement factor. So all those things come together for SSI. The state of Pennsylvania usually contributes some additional money to an SSI recipient. That will be a separate check that comes from the state also on the first of the month. Okay, Catherine, go ahead. So as far as the payment amount for SSI, you see there the maximum federal payment. Like I said, the state contributes something, and most states they do. But the maximum federal payment this year is $914. If the person has no other chargeable income or countable income, then $914 is the max payment. If somebody does have some other type of income, what we call chargeable or countable, SSI will bring the combined total between the other income and the SSI benefit up to $934. So because there's a $20 exclusion that people get, sort of like a break on because they have other income. So if a person has $700, let's say, in a Social Security benefit, they can get an SSI benefit of $234. That adds up to $934, which you see is $20 more than the limit if you have no income but SSI. So there's a $20 exclusion that applies if a person has other income. Okay, Catherine. So I don't know if today we're as much interested in children under 18, but I'll just touch on it briefly. If a child under 18 is applying for SSI and lives with one or both parents, then the income and assets of the parent or parents is considered in the computation. Parental income based on need, for example, public assistance, does not count against SSI, but other types of income would be considered for the parents and resources. We call this process deeming, and deeming stops once a child turns 18, actually stops the month after. So if a child turns 18 in February, then starting in March, they're considered to be an adult. It does not matter at that point what income and assets the parent would have. So go ahead, Catherine. And just to give you a sense of if there is a minor child under 18, just to give you a sense of what the income limits are for the parent, we take into consideration that there may be other children in the household who are not applying for SSI. And obviously the parent has a responsibility to support all the children. So we take that into account. But the example here is if you had a one parent who was working and one child on SSI or applying for SSI, if there are no other children in the household, then the earnings limit for that single parent on a monthly basis is earnings of $37.81. So even though we do our computations for SSI by monthly, I just gave you I wanted to put the yearly total there, which is a little over $45,000, because that just gives you a better sense of what type of income we're talking about. But we do the computations month to month. We don't do them yearly. If there is one other child in the household, then the earnings limit is a little bit higher, and it's going to come out to be $50,586. Now I'm getting, Catherine, I'm getting like some black boxes on my screen. Are you guys seeing that? Catherine?
You were seeing it too? Okay. Are they there currently?
There's one at the bottom from like the rectangular box at the bottom.
Okay, and you know what? That is the captions probably. Let me see.
All right, okay.
Yeah. Let me move them off to this. Give me one moment. I'm going to
Sure.
I'm going to keep the captions on. I'm just going to hide them. Okay. Is that black box now gone?
Yes.
Okay,
It is.
all right.
Okay. So thank you. So, if there was one other child in the household, just to continue this example, the earnings limit for the single parent would be $42.38 a month. That's earnings from work, obviously, and it's almost $51,000 for the year. But that's again, and if there's other children, if there's 2 and 3 and 4 other children in the household, then obviously the limit's going to be a lot higher because a parent has a responsibility to support all the children. Okay. All right, Catherine, we can go. So we just saw the income limit for an individual was $914. The resource limit or asset, you probably would call it assets. Most people would. Our terminology is that it's a resource. So there's a limit on that, and that encompasses cash, of course, bank accounts, any type of investments, bonds, stocks, things like that. Non-home property. What that means is that, let's say an individual is a young adult. If he's paying a mortgage or owns a home, if that would be the case, or in the case of a child, a parent would own the home, that home does not count towards any resource limit. But if there's property elsewhere, what we call non-home property, so in a sense, on maybe 2 properties, then that other property would count. The resource limit is not very high; it hasn't changed in a long time. It's $2,000 for an adult. And if there was a child involved, both the parent and the child would have a limit. You can see there in children's cases, if there's one parent, it would be, in a sense, $4,000, because in almost all cases, children under 18 do not have any assets. So in that case, the parent would get a $4,000 allotment, and if there were 2 parents, it would be $5,000. But for an adult, it's $2,000, and that is counted as of the first moment of each month. So it's a month-to-month calculation, okay? Okay, Catherine. So the definition of disability for an adult, just so you know, this is the same as it is for Social Security. A person has a physical or mental impairment that either has lasted or is expected to last for 12 months or result in death. So what that means is if somebody had, let's say somebody had an accident and they're going to be laid up for a while, it's a pretty severe situation. But if that accident is only expected to keep the person or last 8 months, let's say, then that person would apply and they would probably be denied, because the expectation is that the condition is expected to last at least 12 months. In addition to having this duration of the medical condition, the impairment must prevent the individual from working at what we call a substantial level. And this year in 2023, a substantial level is defined as $1,470 a month, gross earnings, 1,470. So for the year, that's probably about 16,000 or so, I would say. But again, we do monthly calculations. So a person has to have this condition, which has some severity to it. It's expected to last at least 12 months, and it prevents them from working. Now, sometimes what happens, a person has an impairment which is severe enough medically, but they're pushing themselves, let's say, and going to work. And if they're making $1,470 or more, they're going to be denied because they're working at a substantial level. If they would later drop those earnings down below the $1,470, then they could be approved. You could even be working and making $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300, whatever, some figure under this, and you could keep working and still be approved for disability. So just keep that in mind. It's a 2-pronged definition. Okay, and it's the same for SSDI as well for adults. All right, Kathy. Now, one of the things that we establish at Social Security when somebody files a claim is we establish what's called the onset date for their disability. And what that refers to is the earliest date that the condition is severe enough to meet the medical listings that we have, and the person was not working above the substantial level. So the example I just gave you, if a person was working, they're making $1,500-$1,600 a month, they have an impairment, but they're pushing themselves, and let's say sometime in the month of February they stop, well then if they stop today, we would say February 17th is the onset of their disability, because it's the first time remedial part of the SSI decision. Okay, so you can go next one, Kathy. Now, if someone wanted to file a claim for SSI, you can do the medical portion at our website, ssa.gov. You can do that, the medical. The non-medical will usually have to be completed later with somebody from the local Social Security office, either by phone or in person. But you can get the ball rolling by starting a claim online, providing all the medical information about the person's condition. And then the questions about income and resources and who do you live with and all that, that would be done later on by someone from the local office, let's say like Allentown or whatever. They would make arrangements to complete that either by phone or in person. In some cases, you can do the whole thing online, but it's sort of restrictive, and most of the time we find it, you would not be permitted to do the whole thing online. Okay, Cap. Now, if a person doesn't want to do the online, you can do it by phone or in the office. So you would call our toll-free number. There you see it. Available weekdays from 7 to 7. You can talk to a person. So I want to file this claim. And then they'll set you up with an appointment day and time. Allentown office will call you, Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, or you'll go in, whatever you prefer. So you can file online to some degree with the medical, and then you can do the whole thing by phone or in the office. Okay. All right. So once the application is filed and you give us all the medical information, the decision on the case is not done by people at Social Security. It's done by the state of Pennsylvania. We have a contract with the state of Pennsylvania. They're what's called their Disability Determination Services sites, and all the medical information would go there. Locally, there's one in Wilkes-Barre, there's one in Harrisburg, and they have disability evaluators, physicians who are going to gather the information, the medical information. They're going to get the records from wherever you have treatment, and they'll make a determination as to whether the person meets the medical requirements. Generally, that takes about 90 to 100 days to make a decision. It could be a little sooner, might be a little longer. It depends on how quickly they can get the records. And, in some cases, we send people for an additional medical visit to get an evaluation, to have certain tests done that may not have been done. So sometimes there's what's called the consultative examination that the person would have to go to. So as long as the people would keep that appointment, then, then it'd be able to make a good decision on the case. Okay, Catherine. If the SSI claim is approved, benefits are usually going to be retroactive to the effective date of the application. Now you see, it shows effective date underlined. That's because it's important that if you have somebody who wants to file, it's important that you know what the effective date is going to be. Whatever month a contact is made with us to say, hey, I want to have this claim taken for my son or daughter or whomever, or yourself, the effective date of the application is always going to be the first day of the next month. So if somebody called us today to request a claim, today's February 17th, the effective date would be March 1st. So usually when somebody files a claim and it's approved, the disability folks say, yes, this person was disabled as of the effective date. But the reason I want to point that out, though, is that today's February 17th. What if today was February 27th and you had somebody you want to have a claim taken for, and you said, you know what, I'm a little busy today, I'll call them next week sometime. If you call us next week sometime and we're into the month of March, that's going to make the effective date of the application April 1st. And you're conceivably going to lose a month's worth of cash benefits and Medicaid. So if it's the beginning part of the month, it's not that big of a deal. Obviously, if it's February 7th or 10th and you wait a week, no problem. But if it's toward the end of the month, you want to make certain you get in touch with us during that month to avoid any loss of benefits. And in Pennsylvania, we mentioned this, Medicaid entitlement coincides with benefit entitlement. So if a person is going to be approved as of a certain date, the Medicaid would be covering them as of that particular date. Okay. All right, Captain. If the claim is denied, once a person receives a denial notice, you have 60 days to file an appeal. There's several levels of appeal available. The first level is called a reconsideration. in a reconsideration, we will get updated medical information from the person, and then the entire claim goes back up to the DDS, but a new set of people who did not work on the first decision would work on this decision on the reconsideration. So that's going to take a while. It's probably going to take a few months. And then, then we'll be notified whether it's an approval or not. If it's an approval, then we'll start to go back and figure it and pay the person. If it's a denial, then there's a couple levels of appeal that can follow. Each time you have 60 days to appeal. The level after the reconsideration is a hearing before an administrative law judge. Person does not have to go to a hearing, but if they can, if they wish, but that would happen. And then if the hearing is denied, there's an appeals council review that a person can do. That's down in the Baltimore, Washington area. You do not have to go there, but that's where it will be held. And then if that is denied, you actually can file a lawsuit in federal court. So if a person's denied, they should really appeal the denial, because you want to keep the claim active, because you can be paid back to the original application date. If you let over 60 days lapse and you don't have a good reason why you did that, then a lot of times you'll be starting over from scratch. And if you're approved, you're only going to get approved as of the new application date. So it's always good to appeal this. So now, Catherine, I think the next one we're going to start on like working, but does anybody have any questions now about the initial claims process? If we want to address those, if anybody has them.
I don't think so.
I have a quick question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
If so with the 18 rule, how it, the parent's income no longer comes into play, does that count also when they're still in high school? Because my son's going to be turning 18, but he's still technically going to be in high school for another 2 years after that.
Yeah, the age is the determining factor. It doesn't matter whether he's in school or not.
Okay, thank you.
Once the month after he turns 18, we would not look at the parent's income and assets.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yeah,
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. I do have it in the chat. And stop me if this isn't relevant to what we're talking about. But I'm the rep payee for my son, and he does work but makes under the amount that you were referring to. But his employer is placing money in a retirement fund for him. Does that count towards the $2,000 limit?
It does if that money can be accessed. So if somehow, like today, you wanted to draw some money out of there and you're able to do that, then it would count. That's everything about savings funds and things is determined by access. Now, if it's set up in such a way, maybe that your son would not be able to access it, then that could be a different situation. So it might be a thing where the local office would have to look at the terms of the savings arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm going to kind of give you it could or it may or it may not count, but you would have to really check with the office.
Okay, so if I find out from my son's employer that he does not have access to it, then I don't have to report it. Is that right?
Well, I'll just say this to you. You might be better off and just be safer to report it.
Okay.
Because, a couple of things. One, if it's not something that can't be discounted, we have to count it, then you want to know that, okay? And you want this so you can avoid any overpayments and you can work with us. So we'll help you, we'll look at it and give you a ruling, because it's best to know it, because it may be fine, but if it's not, you don't want to get yourself in a situation where he's potentially overpaid down the road,
Okay. I do send in his pay stubs, and it's noted on his pay stubs. So
yeah, but they may not be aware of it. They might just be looking at what his earnings are and posting that, So
Okay.
I can tell you they're probably missing that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I do not have any other questions in the chat at this time. So.
Okay, very good. So now we're going to talk about if a person's on SSI and they want to work, what are the rules for that? So it's going to be the work incentive program, and then I just want to tell you about the Red Book, which is a book that I think is good to have if you have somebody who's working on SSI. And then the last thing will be a little bit about our Ticket to Work program. So we're going to start now. So go ahead, Catherine. So an SSI recipient going to work, that issue of substantial earnings that we talked about, $1,470 a month, does not matter at all once a person's on the program, at least for a while. I'll say for like 6 months. If somebody starts working in the first 6 months after they first go on, and this could be an issue because that might call into question whether the disability decision was correct. But if it's after 6 months or so, then there's no issue of substantial earnings. That 1470 doesn't really mean anything for SSI. However, since SSI is a needs-based program, income, whether it's from earnings or somewhere else, is most likely going to reduce payments depending upon the amount. So benefits will continue overall as long as the income and resource limits are not exceeded. So we would have to know about the earnings, but the 1470 is not an issue once a person is on for, I'll say, for 6 months or more. So we'll get into this now. So go ahead, Catherine. So in the beginning, we said that, you know, if you had $700 in Social Security, we would take $20 off of that and counting how much it's going to affect your SSI. There's the $20 general exclusion that everybody gets for other income. Earnings, however, from work are counted differently than unearned income. For earnings, you get a $65 monthly work exclusion in addition to the $20 general exclusion we talked about. So in essence, you could get $85 taken off the top. So the second bullet there says, we will subtract either 65 or 85 from the person's gross earnings. And then half of what's left over is going to count against SSI. So at the bottom, if a person had $600 in gross earnings before taxes, and you know, they were on SSI, what we would do if they have no other income but work and SSI, we would take $85 off because you get the 65 for work and you get another 20 anyway. So unless you're using it for something else, but if you're not, you're going to get 85 lopped off the top, which gives you 515. And then the next step is half of what's ever left over, half of the 515, which is 257.50, is going to be how much the SSI check is going to be reduced by. So for a person making $600 gross, they will lose $257.50 in SSI. So the bottom line is, you know, they will be to the good of 340 some dollars. They will be ahead of the game. And also, of course, as somebody works, and assuming their Social Security tax is taking out, this person is earning Social Security work credits, which could help this person later on switch to SSDI if they don't have enough credits at the moment for SSDI. But this is how this will work. You're going to have this gross amount for the month, take off the exclusion, whether it's 65 or 85, half of whatever's left over, cut that in half, and that's how much SSI is going to be reduced by. So that's how that works. That's why it's an incentive program, because you don't lose dollar for dollar. So go ahead, Catherine. Now, how much would a person have to make at a job to be completely cut off SSI? Well, in terms of getting a cash SSI payment, if a person had no other income but working, they would have to earn $1,913, $1,913, almost $2,000 in a month to result in no SSI payable. Okay, so the example here to show how that works out. If a person made $1,913 gross, we take 85 off, that leaves them with $1,828. Half of $1,828 is $914. The SSI limit we said in the beginning is $914. So $914, which is the payable amount, the maximum minus the countable income, leaves them with no SSI payable. So a person would have to be making, you know, close to 2,000. So we're talking 20-some thousand a year in earnings, if you want to look at it on a yearly basis, before they would be cut off from SSI. And all that means is they're cut off for that particular month. The SSI income calculations are done month by month. So if this person later turns around next month and only makes $1,000, then we're going to recompute everything, you know, as we go along. So go ahead, Catherine, the next one. So even if a person works and loses their SSI cash payment for that month, they're not off the program, they're not terminated, they're just in a sense in a non-pay situation for that particular month. Medicaid from the state is going to continue in almost all cases. If the person's earnings, like we just saw, are too high to allow an SSI payment, Medicaid will still continue if the yearly earnings don't exceed the Pennsylvania threshold of almost $50,000. So this is sort of like, you can look at it like almost over $4,000 a month a person would have before they would lose Medicaid. And I don't have it here, but even if a person was making that amount of money, there's another step available to a person, which I don't have here because it almost never happens. But there's another way to even keep their Medicaid then. We would look at what the person's medical expenses are. In this situation, we don't even have to look. If their earnings are not going to be this high, they're going to keep their Medicaid. So really, the bottom line is a person should not be afraid they're going to lose Medicaid if they go to work, unless they're going to get some type of fantastic salary to start with, And each state has its own Medicaid threshold. Okay, this is Pennsylvania for this year. All right, Captain. Now, for students who work, there's special computation rules that apply to them. So when I say a student, this is someone who's under 22 and regularly attending school, and they work. We can exclude up to $2,220 gross earnings per month. We can do that, but we can't go over $89.50 for the entire year. So basically, you get about 4 months of $22.20, and there's still some money left over. So if a person's a student and they're working, they're going to get a lot of their earnings discounted. It wouldn't even figure in at all. We would just subtract them, and until the person exceeded $89.50 for the year, they would not have any SSI reduction because of work if they're okay. So next one, Catherine. Now, I mentioned in the beginning about the Red Book. The Red Book is it's a pretty big booklet that we have. It covers work incentives. It covers it both for SSDI and both for SSI. And we call it the Red Book because when it was printed, it used to have a red cover. So now, and the local office used to have it all the time, but now you would have to request it online if you want to get a copy of it, or you can go online and see it. But I mean, it's like about, I don't know, it might be about 70 pages long or so. So you might want to just look at it and see what pages you're most interested in. But there's a way to order that. If you go to our website, ssa.gov, you can order it and they will send you a hard copy by mail. Okay. So I think it's good if you have somebody who's working, it's good to have that because there are some other allowances that I didn't mention here, which don't happen as often. So you might want to have that book on hand. Okay, go ahead, Catherine. And the last couple slides here are about our Ticket to Work program. You might have heard about this. This is a program that's open to anybody on disability, Social Security or SSI between the ages of 18 and 64. And this is for folks who are looking for some help to get a job. There's some free employment services that are provided. It could be career counseling, voc rehab, job training, job placement. We have organizations that are involved with this. We'll show it in a second, but the program is voluntary. Somebody can sign up for it if they want. They don't have to. It's designed, though, in time to help the person become self-sufficient. It's designed to help you get off of the program by making enough money. So go ahead. Next slide there, Catherine. So the Ticket to Work, there's a helpline. If you go to our website, there's a lot of information about it. But the Ticket to Work, there's these companies that have signed up and been approved by the government. And depending upon the person's type of impairment, you can pick out these organizations. They will help with a whole bunch of different things, as we mentioned. Could be helping with a resume, it could be job placement, whatever it might be. You need some training, they will provide it. And you can either do this virtually or you can do it in person, depending upon where the provider is located. If you go to the website, there's actually one called Choose Work, and you can use this online tool to find help, to search for employment networks, these different companies. And the incentive for these companies is that they do not get paid in any way unless you find a job, the person finds a job and makes a certain amount of money. So, they have an incentive to help the person get some good training here. I believe there's one more slide, Catherine, about this.
There's no other questions. We'll give Richard 5 minutes back of his time, and we'll give everybody 5 minutes back to go enjoy. Today is Random Acts of Kindness Day. So if you have maybe take those 5 minutes, do a random act of kindness for somebody in your life. Could be a text, could be a phone call. But thank you for joining us. Like I said, I will get that email out with the slides, any of the links that were provided. And there will be a short survey on there just asking for a little bit of feedback. Helps me know what presentations you're looking for and how we can make these sessions better. So if you could take a couple minutes and just complete that, I would appreciate it. And again, thanks for joining us and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, thank
Take care,
you.
bye.
Bye-bye.